So give you this, or it should be. Good to go. You want to test it to go forward one?
There we are.
Perfect.
Thanks, Erin. So as Erin mentioned, my name is Becky Rafferty. I'm the president and owner of MSquared Talent Solutions. And probably first and foremost, I always introduce myself as a farm girl from Iowa. It's in my identity. It will always be in my identity. I grew up here in Iowa on a small farm a couple of hours south of here, right on the Missouri border. And I came here to the University of Iowa and I got my degree in HR, management and organizations, leadership, all of those things. And I actually thought I was going to be a learning and development person. That was not the job I got out of college. I became an HR generalist, and that was over 20 years ago. I've been in HR for over 20 years now, which seems kind of crazy. There are days I think it was just yesterday. There are other days it feels like 50 years ago. But I've been a jack of all trades in HR, and for the most part, that's really everything. I've done recruitment. I've done benefits, I've done leadership development, I've done education, and I've also done the things in HR that a lot of HR people don't like to do. So things like executive compensation or performance-based compensation. A lot of HR people are like, I don't want to do that. I've also done things really in the last 10 years, been spending a lot more time in things like human resource information systems, which is a big way of saying the computer side of HR. So those systems that you have maybe used as an employee, or maybe some of your family members have used, ways of getting paid or getting hired on. So those recruitment systems that you use to apply for jobs, those are HRIS systems or HR information systems. So that's really what I've been doing for the last 20 years in my jobs. And I've been working in a number of different industries, mostly in healthcare. So things, or in hospital systems as small as 100 to 200 employees, like small critical access hospitals, but also large integrated systems that have large hospitals, physician groups, and also insurance companies. But I also did a small stint with the US government as an HR officer at embassies overseas. I realized I really don't like the bureaucracy of government, so I didn't stay there for very long, but really recognized that I loved small businesses as well. And so I have a tendency to stay in those smaller spaces. 6 years ago, I moved back to Iowa after when I graduated from the University of Iowa. I was like, I'm never living in Iowa again. I took the really long scenic route to come back to Iowa because I lived in Iowa, I went to Washington, D.C., I lived in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, I lived in Jamaica, went to Kansas, I went to New Mexico, and then I came back. So it's the scenic route to come back. But I took the vice president of talent management job at what was the University of Iowa Foundation. It became the University of Iowa Center for Advancement when it merged with the Alumni Association a few years ago. And that's when I met Lindsay, because I hired her onto my team, and we met probably 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago when I hired you onto my team. So Lindsay, do you want to share a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. So kind of the opposite of Becky, I grew up in town and now I'm in the country on a farm. So I live on a farm, on a cattle farm. I don't know if any of you are familiar with like Mechanicsville, Lisbon area. We're about like 5 miles on gravel. I love living out there, but I grew up in town, moved to the country. My husband had a farm. But I attended the University of Northern Iowa. Sorry.
We'll forgive her for that.
But I majored in management with an emphasis in HR. So I kind of set out knowing I wanted to do human resources. A lot of times you go and get your degree and you're like, we'll try this out. And I love it. And I've stayed in it. My first job out of college was working for a smaller company. I was their first HR person in their company. And so it was a really great experience. And I learned a lot. It was Panera Bread of Iowa. So it's a franchise group for all the bakery cafes in Iowa and Southern Illinois at the time. And so restaurant industry experience there for several years. And then I got a job as a human resource generalist at Cornell College in Mount Vernon, Iowa. And I worked there for 10 years. So the education setting. And then Becky hired me at the University of Iowa Center for Advancement, formerly known as the Foundation. So I worked with Becky there, and great experience there as well. Every job I've had, I just learned more and more. My duties typically has always included just being a generalist, which means kind of jack of all trades when it comes to human resources. So everything from like benefits, employee relations, leave, the law, when it comes to employment law, I kind of get exposed to all those different things. I did have a certificate in learning and development. I kind of thought I was going to be doing that too, and it did more if I was able to really stretch that muscle when I worked for Becky. And she's taught me so much. And when, this opportunity came about to follow her and go with her on this adventure, that was a no-brainer for me because she's amazing, very smart, and I loved the business model, and I loved what we have going on. So excited to share it with you guys.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we needed to evaluate, and actually we did right before Lindsay joined us at the UICA, was we had a very antiquated HR model. We were doing really everything on literal pen and paper, or kind of a Excel spreadsheet, Word document type of pen and paper. We had a really bad implementation of an ADP payroll product, and we didn't have any other tools from an HRIS perspective. And so we went to the market, and we were spending all of our time processing paperwork, right? We had almost 300 employees. I had 7 people on my team, and all we were doing was process paperwork. And I said, we have to do more. Our employees deserve more than us just processing paperwork. They needed learning and development programs. They needed leadership development programs. We didn't have time to do that. And so we went to the market. We found a product called UltiPro by a software company called Ultimate Software, and we implemented that. And within 3 years of implementing that, we actually won their national award for innovation for HR transformation. So not just transforming how we did our work, but how the employees experienced their own work and their own job satisfaction and job engagement, because we were now able to offer things like employee engagement programs, mentorship programs, leadership development programs, better onboarding programs, and learning and development programs for them. And it made their jobs and lives better because we now had the time to do this, because we weren't just spinning our wheels doing paperwork all day long. And that, even though I didn't know it at the time, that was the beginning of MSquared, because what I realized is I really love doing this for people, right? I loved that we were able to transform their experience. Yes, it made our lives better, but it was their experience. And so that is actually the value proposition for small businesses. And what Fortune 500 companies started figuring out actually 20 years ago is this idea of employee engagement. And so employee engagement is this idea that when your employees are really not just happy, but they enjoy their job and they feel extreme satisfaction from their job, they're willing to do more for you. They're willing to raise their hand for that extra project or work the extra hours, do that 110%. And when you get employee satisfaction, these good or the bad metrics, so things like absenteeism or turnover or safety incidents, if you're working like in a manufacturing environment or maybe a healthcare environment, those things go down. Those bad metrics go down. And your good metrics, so things like productivity, client satisfaction, and your number one good metric, your profitability, those go up. So the Fortune 500s figured this out 10 or 15 years ago, and so they started to invest in learning development departments, HR departments, and the software behind them as well, right? So we started to see these, and so we started to see the software start to evolve as well. So it wasn't just payroll programs, it was now human capital management programs. That's where you started to see recruitment software start to take off and that artificial intelligence behind them. You started to see performance management software take off as well. Now you have goal setting software, because employees actually like to have goals so that they can work towards them and feel satisfaction from them, right? But unfortunately, small businesses got left behind, because you know what? That small business owner that's wearing all of these hats isn't thinking about this, and they probably don't even know about it, because you know what, they're probably not reading Fortune magazine or Inc magazine where all of this research is being published and being talked about. And they don't have an HR person or a payroll person and a learning development person talking about this with them. So our small businesses are being left behind. But what's interesting is the technology was being developed at such a quick pace that even though these small businesses, if they were aware of it, they're thinking they can't afford it because they're thinking this is big software. Well, the great thing is the software was being developed at such a quick pace, it was becoming more and more affordable. And it was being put out there in a way that it's now at a state that it's created an environment where the small business owner needs it from just an efficiency standpoint, because they're in the spot that they're doing all of these things themselves. They're spending all of this time on administrative processes that they could be spending time on their passion, right? Small business owners created businesses because they loved doing something, not because they loved doing paperwork or keeping track of the payroll laws or the HR laws about what you do with an I-9 when someone gets hired, right? That's what the software can do. And it's at a price point now that what they're paying to just pay their people through payroll, you can have access through this human capital management software to do things like scheduling, automated scheduling. You create a template one time and the software does it for you. And your employees can be in charge of their schedule. They can ask somebody to swap shifts with them and they can set up their own schedule if they want to. Right? You can do it from that perspective. From a payroll perspective, it's not that you're having to manage payroll for hours at a time. It's clicking one or two buttons and you're sending out an EFT for direct deposit and you're not writing manual checks. You'd be amazed the number of small businesses still doing manual payroll checks, right? So the software is out there, and using the connections that we already had at Ultimate Software, because we had won their national award, we were known as their evangelical client. And so when I created MSquared, I reached out to them and I said, I love your product. I fully believe in it. I want to take this to small businesses. How do I do that? Like, what model do you have? And they said, well, unfortunately, UltiPro, we don't sell it to employers under 100 employees. But we have a sister product called UKG Ready that we do. And we have a partnership model where you can go out and license it and sell it. And I was like, great, I'm ready to open my business, and MSquared was created. But there was still a barrier, and it was implementation. Because remember, small business owners, they're running businesses. They don't have the time and energy to create and implement these systems. And to think about the HR side of, well, how do you set up a recruitment system? Like, I don't know what I don't know. So Lindsay, help us understand, like, from our business model, how do we support those small businesses to get over that hurdle as well?
Yeah. So it's not just like, you know, the hours and the knowledge and the time, and it's the money too. It can be a huge hurdle when you think about going to a whole new system, either switching systems or getting an HR system for the very first time. That's a big, that's a big job to get that implemented, customized for you. And so that is a huge hurdle for small businesses. Really expensive. You can pay $5,000 implementation cost, right? And for a small business, that's a big deal. So our model is that that implementation is included. And I'll talk about our subscription model in a minute. But one of the things that we do is we have that initial meeting with our clients. We sit down with them and we do like information gathering. We sit with them, we ask them, what are your current processes look like? Where are your pain points? What do you see? Where are some areas that we can create some efficiencies? What are your current practices? And then we can customize the technology to fit that company, what they need. The software is really highly customizable. It does take some technology like knowledge. We're going through pretty extensive training and completed that, but it has been, it can be intense because there's so many things you can customize with it, but that's our value add to our clients, that we create the system that is built for them, not for any other company. So, and that kind of helps them, you know, they don't have to sit there and go through and enter in all that information and make sure all of the taxes are working correctly in the system and things like that. We do that implementation for them. We go back, we build out the system, then we meet with the clients again and we kind of show them, okay, this is how it works, this is how it's set up, is this what you envision? How can we tweak this to fit your business and what your needs are? And then we'll make some tweaks and then we're ready to roll. You want to go to the next slide. So this is kind of hard to see probably, but this is kind of an example of how we're a subscription model. So a lot of companies out there, usually you're charged for like certain services. Like, you know, okay, you can do payroll, but oh yeah, time cards, that's an add-on. We're going to charge you extra cost for doing those electronic time cards. This is like all included in our services. So, you know, we're truly transparent on what your bill is going to be. It's a flat rate per employee per month is how our model is set up. And so no surprises when you get your monthly bill, expect, and we're not going to constantly say, oh, that's extra, or oh, that's extra. It's very simple model. So we have kind of, we have 4 levels. Our first level is payroll, right? It's your real basic, you've got to pay employees. You are, processing that payroll. We have small, really small companies or maybe having their accountant do that. And it can be inefficient, right? You're having them do paper time cards. Then you're having to turn them into your accountant. Then they're processing it. And maybe you're doing a manual check, things like that. It's all online based. It's all cloud based. There's even an app that would be included. So, everyone has a phone these days. So you can do punches right on the app on their phone. Don't have to mess with it, which is nice. Again, highly customizable. So if the company's like, no, this really works for us, we can work with them on, how can we make things better and keep the processes that they want. But that would be our level 1. Level 2 would be benefits and recruitment. So this kind of goes to that next level of, a little bit larger company. Maybe they offer benefits to their employees, and they want to streamline that. What's not shown on here is kind of our level 3, which is that classic human resources support. And then we do have kind of ad hoc projects that we can do for small businesses too. And kind of the highest level would be like strategic HR. So some examples of like the strategic HR support would be, hey, I really want to create a big compensation model for my employees, create pay ranges so employees kind of know what their ranges are. I'd like to create more transparency for them, create that satisfaction. We can help build that out for clients. We can help build out maybe a performance review process for them that fits the uniqueness of their company, right? We're not like a cookie cutter, like, oh, here's how you do performance reviews. Have fun. We meet regularly. We're a partner with our clients. We know that their success is really dependent on their employees, right? That's like what of their company. And so we know that if they're satisfied and happy, productive employees, it affects the business's bottom line. So we partner with them to make sure that what we're offering and what we're building together is something that really fits their unique company. So one of the things that really makes our business model, another thing that makes our business model unique is business owners get the best of both worlds with us. You get the technology support, state-of-the-art HR system, best-in-class HR system, along with HR expertise. So a lot of payroll companies, maybe they don't have both of those things. We can offer both of those, the technology and HR in one. So if you have a client that's thinking, gosh, I'd like to implement, a PTO policy for my employees. So I've got 20 employees and feeling like, time to like maybe create something that's a little bit more formal. How do I go about doing that? We can help work with them on like, what are the things to think about? What are the things, design from a design aspect, as well as the technology to support that program. So you're not having to constantly manage and keep track of balances, and employees have it on their fingertips, have that information right on their account, on their phone. So a lot of times with larger payroll companies, you're calling into a call center. And if you have trouble, if you're trying to work through maybe an employee relations concern, or you're having trouble with your software, your payroll software, or your time card software, you're on hold and you're getting somebody who doesn't know you or your company. You almost have to re-explain everything to them, right? All been there. So we know our clients really well. We know what their business is, and we can problem solve so much more quickly and help them achieve what they're really wanting to achieve without having to kind of go through that critical role of talking to someone new all the time who doesn't know their business. So, if there's anything else on here that I want to talk through. Well, we know a lot about HR and we're really good with the system, and we know UK, the system's called UKG, but we know that technology really well. One of the things that we struggle with is we are not marketing professionals. We recognize that when we started the business, actually, like, oh man, this is the part that makes us a little, oh gosh, where do we start? How do we do this? And that is something that, we surprisingly found that one of our biggest referrals was our CPA, because a lot of accountants have small business clients and they're kind of processing that payroll. Well, it's not something the accountant really, that's not their bread and butter, their business. That's not, that's not something that the kind of work that they prefer to do, right? So he has been a great referral for us. We've gotten our first several clients are through that connection, but that's something that we'd like to ask you, and thoughts and ideas on marketing our company and kind of getting in front of those small, businesses, and how can we get the word out about what we do. We know we have a good product and we have a great offering, but it's how do we communicate that and get the word out?
Yeah, what we recognize is we're really great HR people. We know how to advocate for employees. We know how to talk with CEOs well. We know how to talk with leaders well. We're not natural salespeople by any means, and we're not marketing people at all. And so that when we kind of did our own skills assessment through the process that we know, we knew that was one of our weaknesses. So that was, as we know, the question that will be asked at the end, what can the community do for us? That's one of the things we'd love for feedback on is, how can we get in front of people better? How can we market better to help grow? Because that's the stage that we're in. But otherwise, from our perspective, one of our goals and what we've always said, really from the time we worked together, not only at MSquared, but at UICA, is that I firmly believe that every employee should have an opportunity to love the job that they're in and the work that they are doing and the team that they're working with and the organization that they're working for. And we now have an opportunity to help employers recognize that goal for their employees. And we love being able to do that. We love being able to partner with small employers to do that. And we love the work that we're doing every day. So with that, what questions can we answer for you?
Great presentation, by the way. Whenever like there's any innovation being adopted into a company, there's always like some kind of pushback or hurdles or things that kind of overlap. As companies adopt your technology and services, what are some of the common hurdles that you pose?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's always change is hard. We know that. And so I think, we always recognize that there's people that are saying, why are you making us do this change? There's nothing broken. Why fix it? So, I think one of the hurdles that we always hear is why now? Why this change? And, we say, why not now, right? This is going to be as good a time as any. And what we can really talk through is, even though there's going to be pushback, your workforce is expecting this, right? So if you're on paper time card, if you're on paper performance reviews, or if you're not doing performance reviews, we know this about the workforce. They can buy almost anything online. You can go and buy a car and go to the dealership and pick it up. You can get a mortgage online. So why can't I get paid online? Why can't I get direct deposit? Why are you still giving me a paycheck, right? When you talk through those elements with leadership, it helps open their mind to, but your employees are expecting this. Or if it's the employees kind of pushing back on it, if you can show them a different future and help them recognize this is going to be a good thing for you, it helps take down some of those hurdles by kind of showing that different future to them.
I think of it as like parenting almost, on where you're just like, trust me, try it, you'll like it. And if you don't, then we can pivot and do something different. I kind of like that. How is your product? Do you have local competition? How is it different than like Future Systems or Bling, two services that we've actually?
Yeah, so great question. Future Systems came up when we were going through funding because almost a lot of the banks use Future Systems. So they were like, well, we're using these guys, so why would you be different? So number one, the technology that Future Systems is using is a Sage-based software. So just in general, UKG is a stronger product than Sage. So we can just say, if you go side by side, the technology is better, number one. The model behind us is different than Future Systems because Future Systems is a payroll company, number one. They have if you look at their website and if you talk to them, they have like over in the corner, they've got, oh, we do a little bit of HR, but it's not a great robust offering. And so, yes, can they process your payroll? They absolutely can process your payroll. They can do your taxes for you. They can do all of those things. But from an HR standpoint, to Lindsay's point, if you came and said, hey, I'm really interested in putting a PTO system together, or, hey, I think I may need to terminate an employee, they can't help you there. And that's where we can step in. And locally, there's no one really in the space that's doing both of those things well. There's a couple companies that say that they're doing those, but they're saying, I'm an HR consulting company and they're charging you per hour. And there's no one with this subscription-based model where a small business owner isn't thinking about how many hours are they going to charge me and how many times do I really want to pick up the phone? And that's where we said, we want to think about this differently. And we want to make it where that business owner really thinks of us as a partner and a partner for life, that they can really put us at the table with them so that we can bring innovative solutions to them as well before, when a challenge to them before it becomes a problem for them, that we're there, we're aware of it, and we're bringing solutions before it becomes a true problem to them. And that's how we're very different than anyone else locally, or I would even say regionally. Like, this isn't the type of model that you usually see in payroll or HR consulting, because HR consulting is usually a per hour fee.
So what marketing have you done that has worked and what hasn't worked?
So great question. We haven't done a lot of marketing because the training that Lindsay was talking about, we're actually just coming out of it. So we spent some money up front working with a marketing firm in Cedar Rapids, building out a website and helping us kind of put some what we're calling kind of like collateral pieces together so that when we do meet with companies, we have some material that we can kind of leave behind with them. But other than that, we haven't done marketing pieces going out. We do with the website that we have, there is a baby CRM behind it. And then with our contract with UKG, they have a lot of marketing pieces that we have access to, including like a little CRM as well that we can push mass emails out that they've put together, which is nice that we don't have to pay extra for. But we don't, like, one of the things that you have to have is kind of like, who do we want to send to? And we haven't really sat down and said, okay, who do we want to target first? We have worked with the SBDC to kind of get a list of contact information within the corridor, but to some degree, like, it's huge, right? And our CRM, like, it can only hold 5,000 contacts, 2,000, I can't remember how many it is. And one of the things is we didn't want to just like load that full of contacts that may or may not pan out. So we're stuck a little bit on like, who do we want to target and like use a tiering system with who do we want to target first or second. But other than having a website up, and doing like our friends and family, or not friends and family, but like folks that, like you had some business contacts based on, some folks that you knew
Just
of,
acquaintances.
just acquaintances, word of mouth. We haven't done much.
To go on top of that, have you thought about marketing towards like research so that you could have more exposure to that type of field? To research about like job performance and all that and releasing that information on your blog or your website and then like getting more views in, or have you thought about research?
We started a blog, so yes, so it's a little bit part of our website does have that, so there's the thought of like, yes, I'd like to have some new readers, or just the blog does something that we started and have built, but it hasn't gained momentum, you know what I mean? Like,
Right,
yeah,
right.
It's a great presentation and very, very interesting business model. I think you mentioned you guys have like a flat subscription based model. Are you able to share pricing, or does that depend on individual products?
No, so one of our core values is we want to be very transparent. And so I had a couple of them up there. So our you're gonna test me to have it on top of my head. So our tier 1 is $20 per employee per month. Our tier 2 is 25. Our tier 3 is 35, and then our tier 4 is 45. As you go up. And so again, our tier 3 that wasn't on there is kind of our, so tier 1 and tier 2 is more technology. And then tier 3 and tier 4 is more the consulting. So HR services consulting, and then the tier 4 is like the strategic, so succession planning, compensation development, things like that.
so really within reach for small businesses, you know, who can't maybe afford a full-time or have an HR person on staff or even a payroll person on staff. Definitely, you know, less expensive than that. And then also what we're finding with some of our clients is that they're saving money. So not only are we making their lives easier and everything's becoming more efficient for them, they're freeing up their time, we also are freeing up some of their resources. Like we end up saving money by doing that, whether they're having an accountant process things or they're having to buy an full program and we kind of using them together, like, oh, I'm doing payroll with the account with the bookkeeper as my payroll, but I'm using this online system for time cards, and I have to use other systems for communicating with my employees all in one. So we're eliminate all those little costs out there.
Yeah, our goal was that, because we knew that they were probably spending more if, on either accounting or some of these cobbled together systems. Our goal was that if we could keep them budget neutral and get them up to like a level 3, because our hope is that we can show our value to add value at that HR service level, right? So it's not just about paying your people anymore. It's about, let's talk about employee engagement. Let's talk about HR services as well and really get them up to that level over time. We always come in talking about, let us pay your people for you. Let us get you to a level 1. And then let's get you to a level 3 over time, because you're going to save money right off the bat, but you'll be budget neutral long term if we can get you up to a level 3.
So to follow up on that, then, in terms of your focus area being to small to medium sized businesses, it seems, have you seen like a sweet spot, a minimum level of employees for a company, minimum number of employees in the company when they get to a level 3 or more or higher?
So we haven't been working with a ton of clients yet, but I would say if you're looking at a level 3, you're probably looking at at least the 20 to 25 if you're really looking at that, because you're bringing in more complexity, right? If you only have 5 employees, I mean, yes, it's a team, and so you have team dynamics that come in. Not as long as there's more than one person, you're going to have disagreements, right? But when you get 20 employees, you're probably looking at having some sort of benefits coming in. You're recruiting people more often. You're probably looking at things like PTO plans. And so that's when you're going to be having more a classic HR needs. And then I would say at that level 4, it's going to be at that and probably closer to more at 50, because then you're going to be starting to think about, I need more sophisticated compensation, right? I might be looking at performance-based compensation rather than just, hey, inflation's going up, so I probably need to give raises to somebody, right? So I'm thinking about that. Now I'm thinking about leadership development, because at 50 employees, I've got middle level leadership, right? And so I need to onboard them some way. I need to make sure that we're all thinking the same. I need to think about communication, right? So in my mind, there's kind of a break at 20 to 25 and then kind of at 50 as well, but every organization is different.
And I'm sorry, one more follow-up. I know you, so this was primarily for employees and employee management. Is there a component of like vendor or contractor management in this, or is that not part of this at all?
So we can manage what's considered a 1099 employee. So if you do have contractor employees, we can manage those through the system as well. So if we have a couple of construction clients that have those, so they have kind of regular employees and then kind of like 1099 contractors, and we can put those into the system and they can clock in and clock out the same way, and we just send them a 1099 at the end of the year instead of a W-2. So there is that type of vendor management in there as well. Yeah, great question.
Thank you.
In the back, and then
Quick presentation on the way to our countries. I have a question about benefits. Do you have vendor partners yet for your benefits?
so we currently are using just the vendor partners that any employer would use, but in our longer term growth plan, one of the things that we have talked about doing is that a lot of small businesses are interested in putting benefits together. And one of the things that we recognize, and what used to happen before the Affordable Care Act, was these small businesses would band together to create a kind of a cooperative healthcare plan. And in my 3 to 5 year business plan, once like we're up and running and making money and we're breaking even, is I would like to be able to, a lot of people thought once the Affordable Care Act came in that you weren't able to do those anymore, that those were illegal, and they're not. And so a lot of people, just small employers, went to the healthcare marketplace, which is great. That's a wonderful thing to have. But I'd actually love to be able to put one of those together, because essentially in 3 to 5 years, the number of small employers we would have just being our clients, you could then pull together a small cooperative health plan. And then we could market that to our clients as well at probably a more affordable price than what they would be able to get as standalone clients, as being like a Wellmark, Blue Cross Blue Shield, or that they are maybe just sending their employees off to the healthcare or the marketplace as well. So long term, I'd love to be able to do that. I don't want to be an actual broker, but I think there's a sweet spot to be able to offer those and to be able to then put those in front of clients to where at a price point that they're not having to pay a brokerage fee, and they're not having to go off and do it completely on their own as well. It's not an offering that we have right now.
Yeah, I mentioned that because that's a big sales point for employers, is someone who can actually negotiate benefits with vendors.
Yeah, it's again, I don't want to become a broker myself. The great thing is Lindsay's husband is an insurance agent, so we're pretty sure that we're going to have a great partnership opportunity in the future. We just have to get this business model, the current business model, up and running, making money, and then that's kind of our next expansion point. Same, yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like $20 a month is a pretty solid price point for your like entry level payroll level 1 that you offer. And you also mentioned too that CPAs, it seems like they sometimes do those pen and paper payroll services for those current small businesses. So I'd be curious, like, do you know how much they usually charge just for like that service in particular? So that could be kind of like a value add for you guys to say, hey, you're currently paying X amount for pen and paper CPA, doesn't specialize that. We can offer the technology and it's really specialized in this for only $20 a month.
Yeah, so when we did our initial research with some local companies, there was a lot of variation. There were some charging upwards of $40 to $50 per employee per month. I think,
More than that.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
you actually saw it had, that it was even more than that for pen and paper. And then tax filings as well. But I mean, we saw that when we set our price points, again, like when I went back to my value system, this was not I want to become a millionaire. This was, I went back to, I want employees to love their job, the teams they're with, and the organizations. And I want to help small businesses be able to achieve this, right? So it really went to, I want to set this at the lowest price point I can to where I can break even after a certain point and then pay my loans back by the 5-year mark. And that's where we set our price points, right? And so we knew that it was going to be able to undercut the local competition. But again, my long-term goal was not a financial motivation other than to be able to pay the bank back.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like almost a no-brainer for all three sides, where like you can go to people who are paying exponentially more for lesser of a service, but also for like the CPA too. I mean, like that's not their main bread and butter. That's not like what they are destined to do essentially. So it's almost like they can even provide those referrals, just kind of like off-source a little bit some of that business too. So it seems like you got a pretty good position there.
That's what our hope is. Our challenge at this point is getting in, like finding the owners and getting in front of them and showing them the model, I would say is our challenge.
Yeah, and I think there's that thought that that's too big of a change, or it's a lot of work to make a switch like that, right? It can be overwhelming. A business owner, they're doing the day-to-day. They're already super busy. They're working way beyond 40 hours a week as it is. There's a lot of those small business owners. So being able to explain, like, give it to us. Like we're able to, we'll do that implementation. We're going to help, alleviate that and kind of, alleviate that workload a little bit. You're going to have less paperwork. Things are going to be more automated for you. So accurate. You don't have to worry about those, oh gosh, this thing happened, or the direct deposit didn't work this week, or, things like that, or taxes. Gosh, we're going to be going and working in another state. Small contractors are maybe doing a project out of state and like, oh gosh, I don't know what to do now, right? We're going to do a payroll run out of state. We can help you with that.
Couple questions. First one is, you said one of the things you're looking for from us is like help with the marketing and getting your name out there. What is the organizational and company demographic that you're looking at right now? I know you said you have a list of businesses, but it's almost like too big. Is there like particular size, particular industry that you're looking at, or is it pretty much wide open right now?
Yeah, at this point, that's a great question. Because the software is so flexible, I think that's one of it's a great point, but it's also hard because it is so flexible. It can serve any industry. Like it is set up to serve restaurants. It's set up to serve construction. We can go into any state and actually go into almost any country. Yeah, I mean,
That's government.
it can go government, it can go nonprofit, it can go educational. So that one of the things that we kind of said from the beginning was, because from the HR element, not really the payroll element, is that we did want to say unionize is a lot harder from an HR element. So we kind of wanted to stay clear of that. Just because when we're up and just getting started, that's probably not the first place we wanted to go into. So we wanted to focus on non-unionized environments. And initially, just because when you looked at that list, a lot of the things, especially kind of in Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, there were a lot of franchisees. So like the McDonald's and the Burger Kings of the world. So we kind of said, well, let's not focus on those either, because likely they're getting support from the franchise owner, right, or the corporate owner. So the things that we thought that were connected to a corporation, so like Kohl's was on there and Walmart's and those kinds of things. We started crossing those off. But after that, like we hated to start crossing things off because we were like, we could absolutely do it. Like you know, that might be a really great partner and we needed to cross them off.
So size wise, though, I mean, we have a client that has 4 employees, right?
Yes.
So, and then all the way up to,
Our other client's 50
yes,
Yeah.
currently, so.
currently, but we can easily go to, we're not from our licensing agreement with UKG Ready. We can sell to anyone. So, you know, if for some reason we started talking to a client that had 500 and they probably wouldn't need our HR services, but they wanted the payroll side of it, we could implement with them. What I say is, as long as, if you're in a sole proprietorship, you're probably not paying yourself from a payroll standpoint, you're probably just doing retained earnings. But if you have another employee, you have to pay them, you have to pay payroll taxes on them. And so at least from a payroll standpoint, we can absolutely take you on as a client. And from our standpoint, that's probably one of the easiest implementations and probably the easiest for us to make money on is actually one employee. So we're also not limited from that perspective either.
What is then the implementation, I don't want to say cost, effort? What's the implementation effort for bringing in, like, say, you mentioned you had a client that has 4 employees. How expensive is, or like I said, cost, time-wise, effort-wise, how expensive is it to bring a new client like that on board? You know, from both your perspective and from their perspective.
It can depend on the complexity of their current processes and systems, right? A client that has 4, for example, our current client that has 4, they're all salaried employees, so it's kind of on that auto pay, right? They have that regular paycheck every month. They're not needing the time card or the punches, so it was a little easier implementation than maybe a client that needs that time card punching and, oh, we have this PTO plan that we need to implement, but you know, these first couple of clients were we're starting off, right, and getting it implemented. So we definitely recognize and can see that there's a learning curve with the system, right, and for us.
Yep.
And so you can really easily see that as time goes on and we have more clients, it can be easier and easier for us with the implementation.
From the client perspective, we have another one that was had 7 employees, a construction company. I sat down with him for an hour and a half at his office. And I had a checklist and I was like, okay, I need this, he printed it off or he emailed it to me. Outside of that hour and a half, we've traded maybe 10 emails and he's up and running in about a week and a half.
Okay.
And then from our perspective, I probably maybe 8 to 10 hours getting him up and going because again, like he was very organized and it was pretty straightforward. We had another client, a 50 employee client. They have full benefits. They're a weekly payroll. So like every week, like as soon as you get done with one, we're processing another parallel payroll working to bring them up and running. Much more complicated. They're hiring people all the time. So every time we get something set, we're hiring somebody new. And so, you know, I probably spent over 100 hours getting them up and going. And every time I hire somebody new for them, like I'm rethinking, do I want to charge an implementation fee? That's charging an implementation fee. But I don't because, you know, again, once we have them up and running, they'll be up and running and, you know, I won't be touching them nearly as much anymore. So.
Okay.
All right, for the sake of time, you've already semi-answered this question, but what can we as a community do for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's the feedback on what's the best way and looking for advice on how, without spending, you know, putting $10,000 into a marketing budget, how do we get our name, our product, and really this innovative approach to out in front of business owners so that they would be willing to answer the phone, willing to respond to an email and to say, hey, maybe this is the time. And maybe I'd be willing to talk to.
I don't know if it's about you, but that's great.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.